Welcome to One-on-One. The annual meeting of the Association of the U.S. Army kicks off in Washington, D.C. Here's an excerpt from Secretary of the Army Pete Geren's comments on the new theme, America's Army, the Strength of the Nation.
October 7th, we began the 7th year of combat operations in Afghanistan. We are 4.5 years in Iraq. This is the third longest war in our nation's history, behind only the Revolutionary War in Vietnam. It is the only extended conflict since the Revolutionary War that we have fought with an all-volunteer force. We have 280,000 soldiers arrayed around the globe, from the Philippines to the Horn of Africa, and soldiers stationed in CONUS in support of the Northern Command, an ever-present reminder of the global reach of our adaptive and insidious enemy. Our 150,000 soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan on the front line and front of mind for all of us. They have urgent needs and expect urgent responses from Big Army to get them what they need when they need it to fight a rapidly adapting enemy. On September 21st, we held a ceremony at the Pentagon to remember and reaffirm our commitment to our nation's POWs and MIAs and the families they left behind. At the ceremony, Secretary Gates spoke eloquently of the challenges and the enemy that confront us. He told us that day, throughout our nation's history, it has always fallen to the men and women of the armed forces to respond to aggressors and adversaries, to endure arduous and Spartan conditions, to risk life and limb on the battlefield, to make the sacrifices that are, in the final analysis, both our nation's tragedy and our glory. As in past eras, we have once again been called to duty in a conflict that is global in scope and generational in duration. The enemies he faced today and the ideology that inspires them are in some ways similar to earlier foes. Their ambitions are global, their hopes totalitarian, but they're also very different. They have no borders to defend, diplomats to negotiate with, or armies, navies, or air forces to defeat. Their instrument is terror, their victims, the innocent. What type of organization, training, and equipment and leadership do we need in our Army today to defeat this enemy, to meet this challenge? We will discuss training, transformation, modernization, this conflict in which strategic communications often rival bullets as the weapon of choice. We'll discuss the important future combat systems and the imperatives that are driving our decisions. We will share our predictions, our best guesses about the future. I cannot explain the why, and I won't even try, but the media's silence about the service of our soldiers and families allows an inaccurate and jaded image of our Army and the war effort to form in the public eye and public mind. So I'm going to talk about soldiers and families, and I will talk about what we have done and must do to sustain the health of this magnificent force, America's Army, the strength of our nation. General Creighton Abrams told us, people are not in the Army, they are the Army. That quote is on the wall of the Army conference room in the Pentagon to remind us every day of our highest priority, the men and women who are our Army, soldiers and Army families, volunteers, every one of them, shouldering the burden of war for our nation. The soldier and the Army family, our all-volunteer force, a national treasure, truly the strength of our nation. Coming out of every conflict, whether the calamity of Desert One or the triumph of the first Gulf War, we have become a different Army, a better Army. Now, 6 years of war. It is a first for this band of volunteers, and our Army is digesting the gulps of change that come with this, as with any war, and the profound changes that come with a long war. It is a different Army than 34 years ago, different than 6 years ago. It is a better Army. It is stretched, but it's better. The demographics of this Army are different from any Army so long at war. 1 million soldiers, active guard and reserve, with the reserve component shouldering the burden of battle throughout the conflict. Over half of our soldiers are married, with more than 700,000 children, volunteers all, the strength of our nation. The strength of this Army depends on the strength of soldiers and the strength of their families. And I'm telling you what you already know. This Army is battle-tested, combat-hardened. This Army has had its moment at the Kasserine Pass. Soldier and family, this Army is strong. These 1 million soldiers and 500,000 families are shouldering a burden for 300 million Americans and most of the free world. Winston Churchill said of British pilots and crew in the Battle of Britain, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few." In this war, the debt of the many to the few grows daily. Ours is a combat army. Over 500,000 of our soldiers have served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Over 220,000 have deployed multiple times. Tens of thousands have served in other combat zones: Grenada, Panama, the Gulf War, Somalia, Bosnia, and Kosovo. Over 539,000 of our combat veterans remain in the Army. Their leadership and their experience shape everything we do. The first-hand lessons of war are spread throughout this force. And for these soldiers at war, the extraordinary has become ordinary, just doing their job. For actions in the current conflict, over 7,000 soldiers have been decorated for valor, and over 15,000 have received Purple Hearts. The service of our soldiers tells the story of this Army. Their service tells what kind of Army we are, and their service speaks for itself. And they speak pretty well for themselves as well. A battalion commander was quoted in the paper recently. "I'm a volunteer, and I'm a warrior. It's my job to fight." He captured the spirit of today's Army. But our Army is stretched, and we face readiness challenges in our non-deployed forces. All of us here know that. And we're working to address those challenges. And there's some who care deeply about the Army who are concerned and ask if we're approaching the conditions that plagued the Army in the 70s. The answer is an unequivocal no. Re-enlistment rates are high. The quality of our soldiers, top-notch. Discipline is strong. We are deploying the best-led, best-trained, and best-equipped soldiers we have ever put in the field. Our soldiers and families believe in what they do. Our soldiers and families take pride in what they do. They understand the stakes. Our soldiers want to see us grow the Army. They want the operational tempo to slow, and they want dwell time to lengthen, but our quality has never been better. Ours is a combat Army. It's a strong Army. However, if we are complacent, if we ignore the lessons learned and warning signs of 6 years of war, the seams that are exposed in the crucible of combat, in the field or on the home front, our Army, soldiers and families will wear down. We will not let that happen.
You've been listening to a one-on-one. Secretary of the Army Pete Geren's remarks on the new theme, America's Army, the Strength of the Nation.